Very well. So in the previous part, please go check it out to gauge your bearings. I was explaining to you how the relationship ended, how things culminated, how my ex got inducted into the occult, how it was largely the fault of bad men and partially the fault of one really bad woman. But the bad woman was conquerable. And this whole message is to encourage women to basically choose to rather do differently and do better. Because in the absence of doing that, men will shatter you to a blistering halt. And it is due to them supporting Jezebelian women and each other that women don't stand a chance. It's like we don't stand for each other, but they stand for each other in destroying women. So in the absence of women actually repenting and doing better by themselves, these men will never ever be won over. The scriptures, it is written therein that a peaceable and a quiet spirit, with it is precious in the sight of the Lord. But with the spirit, we also can win immoral men over for Jesus. So when women are godly, men can actually do a 180. When there is no Jezebel to go around with a succubus spirit inducting men into darkness, we can do better. So much so did I conquer this Jezebel spirit having lady that, remember, my ex-boyfriend struggled to invite me to any event at all where this lady was at. One time he invited me to an all-white party where this girl and all of her friends were at, and it was basically their thing, and my ex went with me. That was the first time in years that he went to any party or event with me. Jezebel wa gaga aditeng. At this stage, he no longer cared because I was the leading lady now, and everybody knew it. I basically conquered this woman, evidencing that frankly the big issue here is not even so much the Jezebel women as it is the spirit of these bad man cave friends. Men are given authority by God to lead us. Therefore, when things in society fall apart, the fault is frankly theirs. When things in the world fall apart, the fault is theirs. Jezebel can only do so much to decimate Ahab. But at the end of the day, who did God give authority and leadership to? He gave authority and leadership to Ahab. So when he relinquishes it, he is at fault here. And that is, I believe, what God is showing me. That Jezebel women, yes, are very powerful to destroy men, decimate them, bring them low. But it is literally other men and all of their man cave irresponsibility that destroys the earth. They are the final say. The buck ends with them. And when therefore the earth falls, they are to blame. They are to blame. It is their capitulation to dark women that causes the world to fall apart. It is therefore also necessarily easily implied that they are in a powerful position to be able to transform bad women by simply rejecting them. This Jezebel lady accepted the status quo because my ex made a decision that he's going to choose me over her and put his foot down. It subdued her. So his leadership in this regard prospered to subdue a Jezebel. But have I ever prospered to subdue him? Did I ever prosper to subdue a man? Did Jezebel prosper to subdue him? No. The men are the ones that, frankly, at the end of the day, the buck ends with them. So when everything in society falls apart, whether or not bad girls had anything to do with it is irrelevant, because the men could have just made a decision to disregard what a bad woman has to say, and the bad woman would have let it go. She would have fled like the devil. If you resist her, she will flee from you. So even the scriptures make it clear in the rebuke to the church at Thyatira that I have this against you. You tolerate that woman Jezebel. So therefore, I will throw her on a sick bed and the rest of y'all into great tribulation. So basically, you can refuse to tolerate Jezebel and then you're cool. Meaning that the buck ends with the one influenced by the Jezebel spirit. It ends with the man who can say no. And I know that it is possible for men to say no because I have witnessed a lot of youth coming to Jesus at just the tiny age of 19, 20 and prospering to conquer despite the passions of youth, Jezebelian females. And they go on to be really great men. So when society falls apart, frankly, men, I don't care how bad the women in the society are, you're to blame. The buck ends with you. Here it is that my ex conquered a Jezebel spirit to a point where he was even able to go to parties with me where this woman was at, and I was the reigning queen. That's it. I won. But the relationship still ended, even though he conquered a Jezebel. Why? Because he just would not be able to conquer listening to men in man caves. I spoke in my earlier parts that it is written in God's word that man must leave his mother and his father and cleave to his wife, and the two become flesh. Not leave his mother and father, cleave to his boys, and all of them party, then meet women, and then they become one flesh with them, and then continue still to basically act in a marriage like they are in high school dating girls, and they can afford to just cheat anyhow, and divorce like you're breaking up with a girlfriend. It is precisely because of this mindset, Yamatota, to band together at the expense of women, that society falls apart, frankly. Their refusal to listen to women, their desire to lord it over with an iron fist irrevocably. That's what destroys society. Just an unwillingness to recognize that God has made us helpers suitable valuables. And if you don't want us to walk in our footsteps, you fall apart as a man. You are the one that stands to lose. The Proverbs 31 woman, it is written of her that her husband has full confidence in her. He is respected at the city gates precisely because his woman is that ride or die, and she's good, and she is the wind beneath his wings. So women are supposed to help men along. They're supposed to give opinions. They're supposed to run the show, and not so much the show, but be the wind beneath the show's wings. But men refuse that to happen. My ex unahana. In the beginning, he was content to embrace my counsel, and he improved for all of 5 seconds. That's why his mom fell in love with me. But then he decided to continue to listen to a man cave, and that's what ended our relationship. Our relationship was not ended by my ex-boyfriend cheating or ransacking me through Jezebels. It ended because he decided to listen to men as to how to handle me because I am getting too strong. My ex started to do well. His business started to thrive. You know, like, I helped this man learn how to drive and get his driver's license. I was there for him, and when he procured a vehicle without even telling me, and then rocking up at my apartment having driven it, and then being like, I asked him, how did you get here? I remember the day when he first showed me his car. I asked my ex, how did you get here? Did you get dropped off by a friend? Did you use a maxi taxi? What? He was like, I drove here. I was like, oh really? Whose car did you use? He was like, mine. Yazzie, I didn't know whether to be happy or sad, because the way that he was telling me, he was like, it's my car. He looked at me like, look who's got a car now. The woman that taught him how to drive, the woman that called the licensing department twice to basically book a date for him to go and write his learners, because he got his learners the first time, let it expire, and then I had to stand on the phone again to get him a date so that he could go for a second time and write his learners again. It expires after 18 months. That woman who did that for him, the woman who taught him how to drive with her own car, risking that it could crash at any moment, the woman who did all that, he could not even surprise me with humility after getting a car. He surprised me with arrogance. He was like, it's my car. Like, that's literally how he looked at me, like, it's my car. Yeah, on some, you're not the only one now that has a car. And as I looked at him on some, really? I got over the attitude that he gave me when he said that, and I jumped on the spot, hugged him, ran outside to look at it, and lo and behold, indeed it was a van, because he wanted to get into construction. And I was like, you bought a car. I was so happy, even though I was very disappointed with the way that he told me. He was supposed to surprise me on some, baby, I finally got a car. But instead he was like, I finally got a car. Guess who's got a car now? You're not the only. I was like, wow, what amnesia do you have? Who made him that arrogant? First of all, he was involved in the occult at that stage. He was busy manipulating me with spirits. Sex hurt because of that spiritual manipulation. And now here it is that what do you call this? He gets a car and he's giving me attitude about it. Oh, and on the same day when he came over to show me the car, he had a wardrobe haul. I understand, I used to see this man every day. Not every day, sorry, but every single week. Right? So it's not like we ever spend months apart without seeing each other. So the overnight transformation of his life was shocking. I don't know what he did to get himself aided along overnight. I remember one time when we were fighting on and off, literally outside of Carfax, the club, and I told my ex, you know, there is an awkward criminal streak in you, and you want to enter into business, and I am very concerned because my ex, he had done something criminal, like he had stolen watches. Goodness, there's so many stories, but I can't tell them all. He has stolen watches that I ended up giving back to his friend because I found out that he stole them, and this friend has suspected him of stealing these watches from him, and I defended him until I found the watches in his possession, in which case I then was very upset. I called the friend, I gave him back the watches, and I then had this conversation with him. So we're outside Carfax, and I said, dude, you want to enter into business, you have aspirations of entering into construction basically, and in order for you to thrive in that ecosystem, you can't be this corrupt. You cannot be into so much ill-gotten gain, like proper, like you are going to find yourself getting imprisoned. You are going to be involved in unsavory business practices, money laundering, racketeering, all that stuff if you don't clean the skunk out of you. This is a woman talking to him like this. I didn't know Jesus at the time, but I was talking to my ex on the fact that you could steal your own boys' watches, and now your friendship with your friend is basically tarnished because of that, means that on the day when you enter into business, you are going to very easily allow yourself to be swayed into unsavory business practices that might get you imprisoned one day. And then I don't want to be a mom raising children by herself because my husband is in prison. Please, You need to stop this. You need to become honest. That conversation got Carfax on the day when he rocked up with a car and he had a whole wardrobe haul. Like shoes, like jeans, belt, jacket, coat. Yes, guys, fashion overhaul overnight. He had a wardrobe makeover. Like he had gone shopping. Like he had gotten a huge amount of money that enabled him to buy not only a car, but change his wardrobe. And it happened over one weekend. Just last week, whatever. And then here it is that this week he was looking so fly. And I was proud of the way that he looked, but for the life of me, how in the world are you making money so fast? At that stage, he was still working his 9 to 5, but he was en route quitting his job. I couldn't understand what happened, but I was proud of him because I knew that he was making preparations to do better. So I thought that maybe something pulled through. He got a contract, and guys, he did not give me this information. He didn't tell me, despite having made me a partner in his business, a silent one, an invisible one, whatever. Here it is that this man is at my door, arrogant. Guys, my ex changed overnight. It's like a ritual happened. It's like he signed some kind of a deal with the devil, and then he came back a different man. Last week, just a week before, he was the humble man that I was with. That was indeed, however, sadly, onang lawyer. But something was different about this time around. Something was different. On that day, I remember I was using some cream on my face because I wasn't trying to get rid of acne because I had pretty clear skin. I don't know why in the world niggas already said that cream, but bottom line is it dried me out and increased my cell turnover, and so the skin on the surface of my face was dead, and I was darker in complexion because of it. And when I smiled, I got wrinkles because, there was dry skin on the surface. It needed to peel off. I was still in my 20s. If I don't have wrinkles now at 38, you must understand I didn't have them then. So I was just going through a cell renewal when he saw me. And I smiled at him at the door as he's busy showing me his car keys and his new outfit. And I am sad about how he announced it to me, but I'm excited because, whoa, milestone, we've reached it, right? And then he looks at my face as I'm smiling, laughing at all of this glory that is happening. Finally, we're getting somewhere with things, I'm very happy. And he looks at my face and he's like, what's happening? Are you getting old? Yo, guys, my ex changed. Something happened. He was replaced. He was replaced. I don't know what the heck happened, but it happened literally over a week. It happened in the week. I remember he used to visit me on the weekends. During the week, we would talk on the phone. So this thing happened from the last time that I saw him to the new time that I now was seeing him. Wardrobe haul makeover with a new car. Arrogant in a way that he never has been, ever. To a point where he looked at my face and was like, are you getting old? He said to me, his rado diamond yake of like 4.5 going on 5 years. Yo, guys. Yazi, because he was never so into rebuffs of that nature, just offending me, I brushed it off because this was not him. I never would have taken that from any other guy except him. He had established a character for years that was so solidified that I imagine this is just a glitch. There's no way this is him. There he was, basically saying to me. I didn't even feel the need to explain to him that I was using a new cream. I just was like, let's go look at the car. Went outside. He was more or less normal for the rest of that night. We went out with his car, right? We went out that night, and it was all good and well, fun. At that stage, I'd already quit drinking. It had been like about 2 years now, and smoking, so both of us were sober. There's so many things that happened with my ex-boyfriend that I can't really enter into the story like proper. Like there was a time when my car, basically we crashed. We didn't crash. We entered into a fight because he wouldn't stand up for me, again because of his friends. Some friend of his that was from long ago that didn't know me, that didn't know that I was his matey, that we'd been dating for years at that stage, at some club that we were at. I was excited to meet him and I was like, hi guy, how are you? And he was like, yo, hi, Lord Dagi, as in like, you're gonna hit that. He was like, yo, she's drunk, you're really gonna get some nice and easy today. Almost like I was some floozy. And he was basically telling my boyfriend that you're gonna get to easily sleep with this woman tonight because she's drunk. He didn't know me because he was from long ago, and he didn't know that he made that I was like properly his girlfriend. And he basically told my ex in front of me when I was greeting him all excited. He looked at me, looked at my ex like I was nobody. He looked at me like I was no one, looked at my ex on some, whoa, she's drunk, I guess you're gonna get to hit that. And he said that audibly in my grill. And I looked at my ex on some, are you gonna let him? Like I looked at him with that look on some, are you gonna let your friend speak of me like that? And my ex was, he brushed it off and he laughed. Yo, my anger. We left same time, did not finish the partying. And as I was busy arguing on our way going, some other dude from the bathrooms in that club, overhearing me rap yapping on, ranting and crying and complaining to my ex. At that stage, I was drunk. I was still drinking alcohol at that stage. And my ex was the only sober one. I told you he was a designated driver, right? So he was the one that was driving. And I was drunk, right? But yeah, whatever. Some dude in the bathrooms that overheard me arguing with my ex, he was like, "Kululega, boy, I'm sorry." Basically saying to my ex, I know how these women can be. It's like it was a double whammy. I got so much misogynistic treatment that evening from something that my ex was supposed to protect me from. You know that scene in Temptation, yeah, Judith, where her man does not stand up for her and she ends up really upset at him? Something like that happened. He did not stand up for me. He allowed his boy to disrespect me, and we ended up having to leave early. And when I was busy arguing and crying and fighting on the way out, another misogynistic man said to him, "Kulega, relax. They love to throw their toys out the cot, but you'll be fine." Ew. It angered me even more. And so instead of driving home, because he was sober, I decided to take the keys because I was like, it's my car. Got into my vehicle, drove fast. It was rainy that night. There were puddles on the road everywhere, and my car lost control and spun in a puddle of water 3 times, and it was stopped by a pole. And yeah, that was the night that I decided to stop drinking, right? The next weekend, I literally made a decision that because of my irrationality in a drunken stupor, I almost killed both me and my boyfriend. At which point my ex then, he got out of the car. It was at night. Some of the neighbors came out of their houses to see what happened. Nothing was hurt. Nobody was hurt. The car had a dent in it because it was stopped by a pole, but it was movable. No damage. To this day, the dent is still there. And my ex and I felt something in the car that prevented us from getting hurt. And he accrued it to ancestors, and I accrued it to God. I said God was there. And so indeed it was God. Something angelic and miraculous happened that day, saving both him and I. And the next day we spoke about it. My ex, he was, like I said, he was so loving before he became like a little bit of a monster and a beast. He knew he was wrong what he did that night, so he stopped at a garage since I was drunk and I was sleeping in the car, basically feeling very ashamed of myself for nearly killing us. And he stopped at a garage and bought me a teddy bear and a rose after I nearly killed him. Okay, yeah, and I locked myself in one of the bedrooms of my apartment that we had gone back to, and what is this? While I was on the floor there, he basically like dropped off because I didn't want to talk to him. I wanted nothing to do with him. He was busy trying to talk to me because he realized that he realized what triggered that event. He did not stand up for me, and he dropped off this flower and this little teddy bear on the floor. Eventually, when I got sick and tired of sleeping on the floor in the second bedroom that was not comfortable for me to sleep in because I wanted to lock myself in there, when I got out, I saw this teddy bear on the floor and I saw this little flower, and I just like I broke out. I broke down basically. And I was like, I started to apologize. I was entitled until I got over myself. In the morning when I had sobered, I woke up, I apologized. I was like, I nearly killed us. I'm so sorry. However, in apologizing to him, he refused to raise the fact that I did what I did because of the fact that he allowed his friend to disrespect me. He refused to admit that. He refused to acknowledge it. He just lay there and was like, it's okay, it's fine. It's okay, it's fine. He knew what he did, but he would never raise it. That's why bad men and their rhetoric and their ideology is very incredibly destructive. They don't even want to admit where they were wrong. My ex and I were nearly killed because I lost my mind after one of these boys basically called me a whore in front of him, and he did not defend me, and I nearly got us killed because of that. It is the irresponsible decisions of men in choosing men instead of their wives or their girlfriends that causes so much calamity on the earth, and they just won't admit it. He just got me a flower and a rose, and not a flower and a rose, sorry, a rose and a little teddy bear, but that was not enough. I wanted him to admit that what happened was not supposed to happen. The only way that he admitted it was through the flower and the teddy bear. Yeah. Anyway, whatever. Ever since that day, I stopped drinking. I made a decision and I never looked back ever since. So yeah, maybe like a year down the line from that particular date, now he got everything he wants in life, right? And here it is that this man has gotten everything that he wants in life, and I don't know how it came about. I'm just thinking that all along he's been working on things in the back end. He's been working on things. He's been working on himself. That's why he's like this. But then he went rude. He became cold. He became not calculating or conniving, but just he changed, guys. He changed. So the guy that would drop off like a teddy bear and what do you call this? Like a rose on the door, on the floor of the door where I'm locking myself in the bedroom, throwing my toys out the cot. Started telling me in my face that Nyagoka, I'm getting old. I've got wrinkles on my face. Telling me that he got a car with attitude. What in the world? He changed in a week or maybe even 24 hours. And I believe that was as a result of some ritual, some satanic deal, something that indwelt him with some demon or entity that made him a different man. And then he came home to me, basically to handle me. I was unaware of what was going on, but by the amazing, glorious grace of God, the Lord decided to call me home. The Lord decided to call me to him at the same time that my ex was busy signing deals with the devil, because of the fact that he saw that I was in danger, I guess. You know, he had mercy on me. It is written in Romans 9 that the Lord will have mercy on whomever he will have mercy. And indeed, he had mercy on me. He had mercy in the worst way. And he rescued me from a satanic man, because whatever my ex was involved in, it was only ever going to get more poignant. It was only ever going to get more deep, more rich. And the richness of what it is that he was involved in, I was not going to be able to stand this time. It was going to mow me to the ground. And I was ignorant of it. I was unaware. I was going to leave him, but I was never going to be able to live outside because he became dangerously possessive of me. I really pray that this guy gets his act together back with Ishjo, like as in satanic deals. My ex was so credulous though. He was so gullible. Kind of person to very easily get lured into occult practices. And I think he was also primed by the devil because, like I said, he lacked prosperity in comparison to many of the guys his age. And so for those reasons, I think he just easily like took a deal when it was thrown in his direction, even though it was ominous. Anyway, whatever. So from the date that he got the car, he became a different guy, but not too different. Very different actually. I told you that I was given reprieve for like a year, maybe like 7 months to a year. He was a better man, but he wanted to expedite growth or something. So he started to do something. He started to act strangely. My ex was very easily, like every weekend he would come to my apartment and we would spend time together, and then he would go to work on Monday from my place. And yeah, that's how we parted ways. And when during the week we'd chat, and then on the weekend again type thing. That was our routine. He started to do what he used to do to me when we were living together, where he would not call, he would not come. He would just stand me up, say I'm coming, and just not pitch. And so one night he irritated me so bad. He basically stood me up. I called, he wouldn't answer me. And then next thing, at like the security guard at the gate knew him, so he didn't even call me to say, will you open for Nonsi, whatever the name I gave him. He would open for him in jail because he knew that he thought that he was a resident. Basically, he thought that my ex lived with me. The way that he was always just coming over. So the security guard did not let me know, but he rocked up at like 2 a.m. in the morning. He wasn't drunk because he had stopped drinking alcohol, but he had ignored me and my calls all day. And I had told him at midnight when I realized that, oh my goodness, he's standing me up. I had sent him a text message telling him, don't you dare come to my apartment. Go to your mama house where you live. He was still staying with his parents at that stage. Now my ex is at this point like 31 or something, so he's kind of like past sell by date for that, right? But whatever, I'm right or die, I'm sticking with him. I'm the one with the apartment. It doesn't matter, I'm sticking with my man. That's it. Anyway, whatever, right? No, so he rocks up at 2 a.m. after I send him a text message very clearly saying that wherever you are at, make sure that whoever you are with drops you off Guinea. Don't come here. And he rocked up at 2 a.m. Yes, guys, I told him, go back. Like, I was getting so fed up at this stage that there was like the compassion that I had for him. Remember in the apartment where I saw him looking all sad and broken and sorrowful, and I ended up getting back together with him, getting pillows at my mom's house on my bed, and bringing them to our old apartment to sleep on the floor for the remaining duration of the lease. Yeah, that's the kind of compassion I had for him, because he had humility. He was still humble, and he humbled himself to sorrow. This time around, he was arrogant outside on some kind of open. And again, I told you my ex used to call me baby, 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 baby. Whenever he was calling me Karabo, that was an irritation. It was something ugly coming out of him. He'd be like, Karabo bula man, I'm outside, open. And he was starting to become aggressive. I was like, over and above the fact that I told you not to come here because it's past midnight, you stood me up. Not only that, now that you are here at 2 a.m. and your boy has driven off, whoever dropped you off, you then are telling me to like you're no, not driven off, sorry. I remember at the stage he already has his own car, right? Now you're telling me to bulela, like with all that attitude. I told him screaming from my bedroom window, get out, leave my apartment. Unless you break my window or break my door, you're not coming in. And I ignored him for a whole whole hour he was busy knocking violently on my window, and he eventually gave up. And the only reason, frankly, I did not eventually capitulate is because he had a car. So I basically made him drive back home. Gatbere was saying I was scared because I was scared to lose this man. I didn't want him to die, and he was starting to live like this reckless life. I was very concerned for his life, and I was like, if he dies going back home in this horrible night time, fine, he's sober, he's not drinking alcohol, I'm gonna be so guilty. And I basically said a small little prayer in my heart that I hope he gets home safely. But I basically stood my ground. It's like he was eroding away or chipping away at the compassion I had for him, and the ability to forgive constantly over and over again. He was chipping away at it. He was making me unyielding. Now he was making me unyielding. Like nothing that he did anymore would work on me, most especially because he became arrogant and he stopped being humble. He stopped. Remember I told you that my ex would hug me back into just embracing him, but he would never be verbally abusive or whatever. He started to be rude. That's what the occult did to him. It changed his personality. So when then he became rude, I no longer had an incentive to basically let him come back in. He no longer humbled himself. So I made him drive home at 3 a.m. in the morning after he annoyed me with knocking for an hour. And I could not even believe that he decided to come to my apartment after I told him, don't you dare come here. I think whoever he was hanging out with that night told him, whatever rubbish she's going to speak to you, ungamlaleli. If she says don't come over to my apartment, and he just decided to drive to my apartment, drive to my place, knocking like a monster. I was like, what rubbish is this? Stuff like that started happening. And then when I would call him to basically talk, he gave me attitude. And in that season, I decided to break up with him, right? I decided to break up with him. However, before we broke up, I remember one time when you were hanging out, he told me a story about a friend of his whose girlfriend had dumped him. A very long-term girlfriend that he had been with since university. And this woman, after dumping him, he was wrong, decides then to move on with her life and date another guy. And then during that time of dumping him, moving on with another guy, he decides to go and make a baby with another woman deliberately. At which point this woman then ended up going back to grovel at this guy's feet, saying, look, I don't care if you've fallen pregnant with this other woman. I will embrace you and that child insofar as you don't leave me for her. Please, we've been together since varsity. I love you. And this guy told my boyfriend that his woman did that because he manipulated her with spurts. He made her come back and grovel at his feet even though he was wrong, and the reason, frankly, why they broke up. And my ex was busy hanging out with this guy at the time of his transformation. So basically this guy, I believe, was telling my ex, this is how you handle a woman. Don't you beg. What you need to do is basically, cause a couple of incense to be sniffed in her nostrils as she sleeps at night. And no matter what you do, she will never be able to dump you. And you will run the show. You will say jump and she will say how high. Here it is that this guy was giving my ex this kind of advice. And God was like, oh my goodness, I want Karabo. Look at what's going on in this relationship. Look at how my daughter is about to become Iskova, a puppet on the string of an occult practitioner. A man that has sold his life to Satan despite knowing that he has something good and that I can help him. And that literally it doesn't have to be like this. He's been given so much evidence to understand that I can help him. And yet he chose to bewitch this young woman until she becomes like a puppet on his string that no longer has her own voice to speak with. He has no idea that I'm busy motioning events around her to bring her to myself. Because of that event that night where he knocked on my window until he left and went home, I dumped him. I was like, it's over. We're not gonna do this. During that time we were broken up and my ex stopped begging me to come back together with him. He stopped groveling at my feet to get back together with him. I told you guys that every time we would break up, he'd be like, no, but really, this does not make sense. Well, this time around, he would allow a good 2 weeks, 3 weeks to progress with us being gone or broken up. And I was like, maybe him letting me go is exactly what I need, because I always struggled to walk away because he always knew how to reel me back in. He stopped trying to reel me back in. I was like, ugh, whatever, I don't care. At the time, I thought, ugh, whatever, I don't care. So one time when he was busy trying to reel me back in, when I had dumped him, we had broken up, right? And he wasn't even trying to call me. He was starting to become really, very arrogant. I had reconnected with a former friend of mine on Facebook that was like my friend from primary school and high school, and we reconnected. And this girl was having a 25th birthday party. She was 1 year younger than us. I was 26 that year. I got saved in my 26th year of life. I did let you guys know that, right? So my girl was turning turning 25, and she was having a party somewhere, four ways. And I was like, whew, you know what? I'm single, and I'm gonna go let loose and just enjoy with my girls, and reconnect with a high school friend, with a primary school friend, like an old friend. I'm just gonna go and reconnect with some people. Went to this party, my girl, and at that party I saw another girl that was in my high school that was my girl's girl, right? So basically she was an acquaintance of mine. I knew her from high school, but she wasn't my friend. However, my friend was all over the show as a hostess, so I hung out with this girl that I recognized from high school, and we started talking about sex, right? I was at that stage, I did not want to continue. I did not have sex again with another guy unless he was my future husband. I proper was not trying to have sex with a new man. That's what's good. I'd been with one guy for 5 years, and frankly I was not going to add dude number 6 to my list just in case you were numbering what my body count is. I was not about to do that. So here it is that I was at this joint. I'm single. I'd broken up with this random buffoon, and I was like, so like, really girl, how long do you think a woman must wait before having sex? In a relationship, right? I'm expecting her to tell me 3 months because that's what Steve Harvey gotta say. And this chick was like, I'm married. I was like, at a party, like at a club. I told you guys that my first evangelistic experience was in a club. She's like, marriage. I was like, no way, you gotta test the goods first. What if the guy can't, deliver, blah, blah. Me, I gotta test the goods first. And this chick is like, well, I mean, unless you want to roam these streets with some soul tie and be married to some dude, and you go and you ask God for a husband, and the next thing, like, the devil is gonna be like, no, she's already married, you will continue with that mindset. She basically told me that I was married to whoever I was having sex with. Every guy that I'd ever had sex with, I'm married to them, and the devil can prevent my marriage because of soul ties. She just basically explained soul ties to me in the club. Yeah, with all that music going on this friend of mine, I was like, even though I was not religious, I was not attending church, I was not doing anything, I was not listening to sermons, she hit me. Conviction, yeah. First of all, I wanted marriage like no man's business. I wanted children, the whole nine. And this woman was telling me that I am married to 5 men, and the devil is going to tell me, to tell God, that Lomuntu chatila want to 5. So, I mean, really and truly, you can't give her a husband. Her theology was messed up. There is no such thing, frankly. When you come to Christ, you're a new creation. However, that was enough. It evangelized me. It was enough to cause me to basically research this thing, this phenomenon. I kept on probing at her and asking more questions, but she was just busy clubbing, partying. This girl, Nike Grace Bible Church, Grace. That's the thing about the kingdom of heaven. Frankly, a lot of times people get rescued, saved by people that aren't saved, that are lukewarm. So I got born again through people who were at a party, drinking it up a storm, clubbing, still in that whole heavy lifestyle. But I got given the gospel in a club. That's what's good. By a lukewarm Christian. I got given the gospel more or less. But what she said about soul ties, she didn't give me the gospel. She didn't tell me I was lost. I need to be saved by grace, by Jesus. No, that didn't happen. I went and I researched these soul ties because I was so worried about them the next day that I was busy married to another person, to 5 people, including my ex. And frankly, the devil is going to prosper to tell God he can't give me a husband. I was shocked and shooken by this thing that this girl had told me, that I went to work on the Monday and just started to Google research like no man's business what in the world this girl was talking about. Lo and behold, the issue of soul ties was linked to the gospel, and that's how I slowly but surely came to Christ. Soul ties was linked to the gospel. Like everywhere where I would read about soul ties, of any article on the internet, it was always linked to the gospel. People were always saying, first you need to give your life to the Lord. And I asked this girl in the club, so girl, how do I get cured from this? And she told me I need to go and see a pastor that's going to deliver me. And for me it was like, okay, well, am I going to find a pastor? I don't have a pastor. So I thought that I could go online and find where I can find such a pastor or such a person as this that's going to deliver me. And instead I read the gospel. I was made to understand the gospel. I was made to understand that I have to pray for salvation. I have to ask for healing. So basically, after my ex and I broke up, and he wasn't even trying to beg me, and then I reconnected with a friend on Facebook that, invited me to a 25th party at a club, I then met a lukewarm Christian there that just randomly threw out conversations about soul ties in the club, and it hit me so hard that I googled it for myself and I started to read up, and so therefore hear the gospel. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. I was not immediately saved. I was just researching, but at that stage the Holy Spirit was all up in around me, convicting of sin. How it is that I got saved, let's go and talk about that in the next part.